So thanks everyone for being here. I appreciate it. The program says that Mahtab and I were going to work on this together, and we would have loved to work on it together, but we both had really busy summers. And in fact, just last Saturday, Mahtab was married. She had her wedding. So you can imagine how busy she's been in July. And we live so far apart that we just didn't get a chance to sit down together. I don't know if I can work as a team on virtually. That's kind of hard, I think, on a project like this. So anyway, it was just me, and I'll do my best. I really appreciate you being here. I think it'll be fun when we can get to the breakout groups. I'll be kind of a little self-conscious about going too long, but anyway, the workshops get, pardon me? Mm-hmm.
Jackie, Tim got me unmuted. So I will do the quote-unquote official introduction.
Oh, great.
You've already done part of it, and thank you for getting started and being okay with the logistics here. And also, I repeat, thank you to Anne for the worship. Jackie Koury, our presenter for today. Yes, as she was saying, it was going to be Jackie and Mahtab, although Mahtab is not able to be here because of a last-minute work commitment. But Jackie has been a reader for a very long time, most of her life based on the numbers. And Jackie's from Bend, Oregon, is a retired teacher, but she still does substitute teaching to stay active with interacting with young folks. She's been on the education committee since 2013, and we're very happy to have Jackie as presenting this lovely morning. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Go ahead, Jackie.
Okay. So I thought I'd put the approximate time schedule for all of the workshops. We had our 10, 15 minutes of worship, and we're going to have 50 to 60 minutes, might be 40, I hope, full group presentation. In my case, I'm going to be doing a PowerPoint. I have approximately 60 slides, and then we'll have a 5-minute break, maybe a reorganization time, and 30 to 35 minutes breakout groups, and then we'll come back for a whole group wrap up, 15 to 25 minutes. We'll see how that goes. Yeah, there's technical problems. That's always so fun. Okay, so I'm going to do a few disclosures. Second. I'm ready here. Okay, the direct quotes are not usually noted in my PowerPoint. Many quotes are paraphrased. I often use my own words explaining what I learned. This is the first workshop I've ever done, and I've always admired how people can get so many, there's been so many workshops taken out of our rich Urantia book, and I've never done it before, but like they always say, the presenter always learns the most, and I really learned a lot, and so it's really been a valuable experience for me. But so then the information on implications of being a decimal planet is somewhat limited. Therefore, to widen the picture, we'll discuss many related topics, such as the life carriers. And the Urantia book makes it very clear our world is a far departure from the average course of evolutionary progress and development. Far departure. Can only use our imagination. Okay, implications. I just having a little problem here. Just 1 second here. Okay.
Looks good.
Okay, I'll go ahead and start. All right, so the implications of being a decimal planet, life carriers and life modifications. Decimal. The number 10, the decimal system, is inherent in the physical universe, but not in the spiritual. This statement is referring to the physical organization of the 7 super universes and the local universes. Outside of paradise and excluding the Havona worlds, the super universes and local universes use powers of 10 to make up the physical units of organizational divisions. And then all inhabited worlds are grouped into local systems for reason of celestial administration. So the decimal system is used in the physical. And I'm sorry, I'm having trouble, a little bit of trouble. Decimal construction in the spiritual system. So decimal construction has to do with matter, but we run into 3, 7, and multiples of 12 often in the book, and it says 3, 7, and multiples of 12 are used in the domain of life. The number 7 is basic to the central universe and the spiritual system of inherent transmissions of character. That'd be really interesting to study the system of inherent transmissions of character. I wonder what that means. But the number 10, the decimal system, is inherent in energy, matter, and the material creation. So the number of electrons going around a nucleus and things like that are decimal construction. So we can see the organization Orvanton is our super universe. And I can just let you look at that, how the powers of 10 are used. One super universe has 10 major sectors. I'll just let you glance at that. And down to one system has the potential for 1,000 worlds. And we're going to be mostly focusing on our system today. Okay. What is a decimal planet? A decimal planet is based on the number 10. A decimal represents parts of a whole. Sequentially, 1 out of every 10 evolutionary planets in a system of 1,000 worlds are declared a decimal planet by the life carriers and the Melchizedeks involved. Therefore, decimal planets are 1/10 of each group of 10 evolutionary worlds, affords the life carriers an opportunity to explore a greater variance in Nebanon's standard life designs. So you get the life designs from Nebanon. Decimal planets are also called life modification worlds and experimental worlds or spheres. So decimal spheres, experimental worlds. Experimental worlds are usually ideally adapted to typical life forms. On these decimal planets, the life carriers attempt to produce beneficial variations in the standard designs. Since your world is an experimental planet, it differs markedly from its sister spheres in Satania. Many forms of life have appeared on Urantia that are not found elsewhere. Likewise are many common species absent from your planet. How to be a decimal planet. 2 factors must check off. As an evolutionary world in the local universe of Nebanon nears readiness for life implantation, the planet must be doomed suitable for becoming a decimal planet. They don't tell us what those parameters are. From a repetitive series of 1 through 10 inhabited evolutionary worlds, the 10th of each series is subject to being approved as a decimal planet. Must be suitable, and then the numbers have to fall into place. And this is just a design that we're a decimal planet in the system of Satania, and we're going to put most of our focus on our system today. And again, I'll just let you look at that, but didn't know if we had some newer readers. So our local universe is Nebanon, constellation Norlashidic, and system Satania. So the book tells us planets vary in terms of groups of adjustments, and that there's 3 groups of inhabited planets in terms of adjustment. I don't remember running into this before. The normal adjustment group, and then there's the radical adjustment group, and the example they use is the non-breathers. That's pretty interesting and easy to understand. That'd be radical, it seems, for us. And then the experimental group, decimal planets. So what do they mean by experimental? The establishment of life on no world is ever experimental in the sense that something untried, unknown is attempted. The evolution of life is a technique ever progressive, differential, and variable, but never haphazard, uncontrolled, nor wholly experimental in the accidental sense. They find the balance. Facts about local universes. No 2 worlds are exactly alike in plant and animal endowment. Even cell reproduction varies slightly in each local universe. Planetary variations in the system result from decisions made by the life carriers. There is nothing in the life carriers' methods that is careless. The universes are conducted according to law and order. Nebanon, our local universe, has laws that come from divine mandates of Salvington, its headquarters world. The evolutionary order of life in our system of Satania is in harmony with the evolutionary pattern of its local universe, Nebanon. A number of facts about the system of Satania. All worlds in a local system, 1,000, have an unmistakable physical kinship. They always tell us so many interesting things in the Urantia book. I just try to wonder what that physical kinship would be like over 1,000 worlds. And then there's so many systems. By the decree of the Ancients of Days, local systems are limited to 1,000 evolutionary worlds. This number does not include planets settled in light and life, nor planets in the pre-human stage of life development. Anova, the oldest world in Satania, is world number 1 in our system. Evolutionary planets are numbered serially in accordance with their registration. The system of Satania is an unfinished system. I wonder if the other ones in our constellation are, containing only 619 inhabited worlds. There are 36 uninhabited planets in Satania nearing the life endowment stage. Of course, this is all at the time of the writing. Our world, Urantia, is number 606 in the planetary group of Satania. And the book tells us that 200 plus additional planets were evolving favorably toward becoming inhabited worlds in the future in the next few million years. Satania is system number 24 out of 100. So we are young. So next we're going to study a little bit about the life carriers, since they have a lot to do with us being a decimal planet. And to gain a better understanding of the life carriers, I thought we'd have a good opportunity to review just a few facts about the Ancients of Days. So the Ancients of Days are basically identical. They disclose the combined character and unified nature of the Trinity. Okay. They are, number 1, they are the Supreme Trinity personalities, all trinitized at the same time. There are 21 Ancients of Days. Each super universe has 3 Ancients of Days who govern together. Ancients of Days are the personal rulers of the super universes, are all uniform and super perfect offspring of the Paradise Trinity. I thought that was interesting to see that word super perfect. I've never seen it before like that. They possess individuality and they possess individuality and are in personality diverse, but they do not differ from each other. So life carriers are a local universe sun. We have our Trinitized suns, but they're the local universe suns originating from the Paradise Creator Sun in association with the Universe Mother Spirit. So our local universe suns are the Melchizedek suns, Veronadek, Lenonadek, and life carriers. Are part of that group. So just briefly about the Melchizedeks and Veronadeks and Lenonadeks. So they're Nebanon's local universe offspring, and it's the creative union between the local universe creator sun, Michael, and the local universe creative spirit, the mother spirit. And so the Melchizedeks come about, the original father Melchizedek collaborates with the creator sun and creative spirit to bring into existence the entire group of Melchizedeks. Now the Veronadeks and Lenonadeks, the union of the creator sun and the creative spirit, give birth to them. And the Veronadeks are best known as the Most Highs, and the Lenonadeks are best known as system sovereigns and planetary princes. So we're going to learn about, or talk more about, life carriers, the most interesting and diverse family of local universe suns. So life carriers, local universe suns, they're peculiar and distinct. The only intelligent life in the local universe whose origin involves a super universe ruler. That's what's really distinct about them. One of 3 Ancients of Days from our super universe of Ravanton, in association with the Creator Sun and the Universe Mother Spirit, created the life carriers. When the Melchizedeks, Veronadeks, and Lenonadeks are brought into being from the local universe personalities, where they're brought into by the local personalities, the versatile life carriers DNA reaches from the local universe and extends all the way to our super universe. The Ancients of Days alone can decree extinction of life, and in significant symmetry, they participate in the creation of life carriers who establish life. So that's why the book explains that the ancients and days are involved. And I do think it's really significant symmetry. Then life carriers, facts, and functions. Life carriers can exist on one of three levels. They actually have personality metamorphosis. To change, they do need universe directors and a diverse group of diverse universe directors, I'll just say. I don't want to get too much into that, although I did have a few slides on it that I deleted. But so life carriers, to bring life to the planet, they're in their physical level of electrochemistry. But their normal state is the mid-phase of quasi-merantial existence. That's their normal state. But in that state, they can't come to a planet and carry life or produce life. They have to be in the physical level of electrochemistry. And then they also metamorphose into advanced semi-spiritual level when needed, I suppose. Nebanon has on record 100 million life carriers. The Melchizedeks are closely associated with life carriers and always accompanying them when they go forth to establish life on a new planet. Life carriers design and carry creature life to the planetary spheres. After planting life on a new world, they remain there for long periods to foster development. So this is just a little bit about the design team, life carriers and designing life. The creator's son provides the original life designs, and then the life carriers are interested in the outworking of the plans. The senior life carriers and core of Melchizedek scrutinize the plans, and departure from previously accepted formulas. If it's yes, if they're too much of a departure, they must be approved and endorsed by the creator's son. Organization. So Urantia's first visitation. Urantia, planet of the system of Satania. So 1 billion years ago is the date of the actual beginning of Urantia's history, when it was placed on the physical registry of Nebanon and given its name. 900 million years ago, Urantia experienced the arrival of the first scouting party sent out from Jerusalem to examine the planet and report on its adaptation for a life experimental station. The scouting party consisted of 24 members, life carriers, Lenonadek sons, Melchizedek, Seraphim, and other celestial life having to do with early planetary organization and administration. The scouting party's findings. This commission reported favorably to the system sovereign, who at the time was Lucifer. Urantia was registered in Jerusalem as a decimal planet or experimental world. Next, the life carriers were notified that they'd be granted permission to institute new patterns of mechanical, chemical, and electrical mobilization. The story of 61 worlds in Satania, assigned to a special registry. In all Satania, there are only 61 worlds similar to Urantia, life modification planets. The majority of inhabited worlds are peopled in accordance with established techniques. On such spheres, the life carriers are afforded little leeway in their plans for life implantation. About 1 world in 10 is designated as a decimal planet and assigned to the special registry of the life carriers. And on such planets, we are permitted to undertake certain life experiments in an effort to modify or possibly improve the standard universe type of living beings. It's really interesting. I think that we're also a decimal planet on top of so many things. How exciting, huh? So the Nebanon broadcasts from Salvington. Urantia will be the stage upon which the life carriers can execute their 60th Satania experiment, designed to amplify and improve the system of Satania's life of Nebanon life patterns. Okay, that's a lot. But what I thought was interesting was that the experiment is designed to amplify and improve the system of Satania life. And I just am really curious about amplify and what all that means and what an example of that might be. And so then in the broadcast, Urantia was recognized. We were accorded full universe status. We were registered in our major minor sector, and we found entry on the planetary life registry of Uversa, the capital of Ravanton. Evolution is real. It should be made clear that life carriers cannot initiate life until a sphere is ripe for the inauguration of the evolutionary cycle. Neither can they provide for a more rapid life development. then can be supported and accommodated by the physical progress of the planet. So launching life on Urantia, life carriers prepare. 600 million years ago, life carriers studied to prepare to launch life on Urantia. Since Urantia is evolutionary planet number 606 in the system of Satania, it was to be the 606th time the life carriers were in charge of the initiation of the Nebanon life patterns. So there are Nebanon life patterns. Yes, the local universe of Nebanon has a planetary type, but also it's true that no two planets are alike. There is always a planetary type in which the life carriers are constantly working on in an effort to improve the vital formulas. The life carriers take the pattern and work to make improvements within the prescribed mandates of implanting life. So it's not all free form. They do have some mandates that they need to follow in there. Okay, the collaboration in an effort to modify decimal planets in Nebanon. It's a collaboration in an effort. It's a collaboration teamwork event. Life carriers and associates in Melchizedek's collaborate to modify and possibly improve the life design for implantation on the decimal planets. So just pointing out the team and the Melchizedek's being involved. Okay, this has a lot of information. Life carriers' second trip to Urantia was 550 million years ago. They were accompanied, I learned this, they're accompanied by the adjutant mind spirits with the agenda to plant life. The 7 adjutant mind spirits always accompany the life carriers to a new planet. Therefore, in cooperation with spiritual powers and super physical forces, the life carriers organized and initiated the original life patterns of this world and planted them in the hospitable waters of the realm. 3 original and identical and simultaneous marine life implantations were made. The purpose of 3 implantations was to ensure each landmass would carry this life with it in its warm water as the land subsequently separated. All planetary life on Urantia originated in one of 3 implantations. So, unique Urantia. A member of the Urantia Life Carrier Corps resident on the planet wrote that we are called life carriers should not confuse you. We can and do carry life to the planets, but we brought no life to Urantia. Urantia life is unique and original with the planet. The life carrier continues. This sphere is a life modification world. All life appearing hereon was formulated by us right here on the planet. And there is no other world in all Satania, even all Nebanon, that has a life existence just like that of Urantia. So I'm taking that as that was a life modification. And I guess we can just speculate on why they tried that. Sparks, I think this is important. Life carriers and the vital spark. This vital spark is bestowed through the life carriers and not by them. With approved formulas, physical patterns provided to the life carriers impart through their persons the vital spirit spark, and forthwith do inert patterns become living matter. The vital spark, the mystery of life, while these transactions are formulated and supervised by these sons, the life carriers, it is the universe mother spirit who supplies the essential factor of the living plasma. From the creative daughter of the infinite spirit comes that energy spark, which enlivens the body and presages the mind. So, yeah, we're experimental planet, and there was an example in the book of a failed experiment. So I thought it was good to include a failed experiment. The life carriers run into failures or discover unplanned and unforeseen results. An example is sometime before 130 million years ago, the first mammals appeared. They were non-placental and proved a speedy failure. None survived. This was an experimental effort to improve mammalian types, but it did not succeed on Urantia. So the 7 adjutants also are affected by us being a decimal planet. They're isolated. Put a question mark and we'll see. The 7 adjutant spirits are more circuit-like than entity-like, and on ordinary worlds, they are encircuited with other adjutant functionings throughout the local universe. But on life experiment planets, however, they are relatively isolated. And on Urantia, owing to the fact that the lower adjutants experienced far more difficulty in contacting with the evolutionary organisms that than would have been the case in a more standard type of life endowment. So the lower adjutants experienced more difficulty because we weren't a standard life endowment, they're saying. The role of the 7 adjutants in human will. Tireless mind ministers who work with the life carriers, these mind ministers, which was a surprise to me that they come before any revelation. It's one thing I learned. These mind ministers work to explain brain capacity in their work to create human will creatures capable of gaining universe citizenship. So increasingly down through the dawn of mammals, mid-mammals, and primates, the life carriers observed augmented service of the first 5 adjutants. And the first 5, intuition, understanding, courage, knowledge, and counsel. The adjutants work effectively despite the planet not having had their first epical revelation. Now, the spirit of wisdom, the highest of the 7 adjutant mind spirits, interestingly, coming after worship. In Andon Infanta's circumstance, it took meditative thought and purposeful decision for the spirit of wisdom to begin to function on Urantia. There was an immediate and new order of mobilization of the 7 adjutant mind spirits. We were alive with expectation. We realized that the long-awaited for hour was approaching. We knew we were upon the threshold of the realization of our protracted effort to evolve will creatures on Urantia. Andon Infanta's achievement. Through the dutiful mind ministry of the 7 adjutant mind spirits, Andon Infanta achieved human will creature status. By giving thought and making a wise decision, they moved the human race forward and they opened the circuits of communication from on high. News from planet 606, a note of joy from the life carriers. Imagine our joy one day. The twins, Andon Infanta, were about 10 years old when the spirit of worship made its first contact with the mind of the female twin, and shortly thereafter with the male. We knew that something closely akin to human mind was approaching culmination, and when, about a year later, they finally resolved, as a result of meditative thought and purposeful decision, to flee from home and journey north, then did the spirit of wisdom begin to function on Urantia in these 2 now recognized human minds. Life carriers work ending. Messages from Salvington, Attention, Jerusalem. Life carriers' age-long supervision of the planet from designing life, implanting it was coming to a point of completion. For ages, assisted only by the 7 adjutant mind spirits and the master physical controllers, their work was finished. Once Andon Infanta had achieved the human will type mind. Oops. So in a normal world, in the system of Satania, at least previous to number 606, Urantia, we don't know what changes may have come, but in a normal world, we'd have the 6 color races have been in long existence, each of them coming one at a time before will emerges. And then we get Andon Infanta, the first human family, the first where will emerges. And then about the same time as the first human family, is there. The revelation number 1, the planetary prince arrives very shortly afterwards. And then shortly after the planetary prince, it's the mother, the material son and daughter, Adam and Eve. So as per standard plans in Satania to date, before 606. So this normally, a planetary prince arrives about the time of will creatures, often during the lifetime of normal worlds and on Infanta. Shortly after attaining sufficient racial progress, normally the system sovereign dispatches a material son and daughter to uplift the planet biologically. For centuries, the school of the planetary prince and the garden schools of Adam and Eve are contemporary. They usually are located not far apart. This sets the pace for development of civilization and world culture. Racial progress attains a natural biologic peak. Government appears on Earth, and great social strides are made during the first few thousand years. Under normal conditions, mortals attain a high state of civilization during this age. So more major decimal events on Urantia. So here's our timeline. Andon and Fanta, the first human family, 1 million years ago. And then it was 500,000 years before epical revelation number 1, before our planetary prince. And then our planetary prince arrives at the exact same time as the 6 Sangic races appear at the same time in one family. So that happened 500,000 years ago. And then, so we had 300,000 years. Urantia planetary civilization progressed in a fairly normal manner before 200,000 years ago, the Lucifer and Caligastia rebellion. And then it wasn't until 37,000 years ago that our material son and daughter came. So we can see a lot of things that are different there. I think I explained it more as we go along, so I'll move forward. Life modification alert. Or is Urantia Planetary's prince arrival 500,000 years late? Our planetary prince arrived 500,000 years after the appearance of Andon and Fanta. The planetary prince normally arrives in conjunction with the first well creatures. On Urantia, the Adonic race had 500,000 years to establish and evolve. I find that very amazing. This is roughly 500,000 years more than normal worlds in Satania. Urantia, designated life modification planet. Why the late arrival of our planetary prince Caligastia, the first revelation to Urantia? Human will was allowed to develop unaided by revelation for 500,000 years due to a pre-agreement between the design team. Instead of the appearance of a planetary prince about the time of Andon and Fanta, the agreement was that 12 Melchizedek observers were sent as advisors to the life carriers with the plan to be overseers of Urantia until the planned late arrival of our planetary prince. So it was planned that he would arrive late. Life modification alert again, that 6 Sangic, we're going to be reviewing, I know some of it's repetitive, but the 6 Sangic races arrived simultaneously on Urantia at the same time in one family. I know that this would be indigo. It's just a graphic I found. On a normal world, the 6 colored races appear one at a time and successfully over the span of long periods of time before the appearance of will. They ordinarily are diversified by strains of independent mutations with the pre-human animal stock. Will usually makes its appearance in the red race. First makes its appearance. And then this is just a little graphic of different families, what it might have looked like. I don't think so. Decimal planet episodes. The arrival of our planetary prince 500,000 years ago after Andon and Fanta is a decimal planet episode. The Adonic race, a pre-colored race, had 500,000 years to evolve. Sorry, this is repetitive. The simultaneous appearance of the 6 Sangic mutants in a single family is a decimal episode. The arrival of our planetary prince Caligastia at the same time as the 6 colored races is. Now, they call them the 6 Sangic mutants, and I thought I'd get the definition of a mutant. A mutant is an altered or modified organism, gene, or chromosome that is different than a wild, unaltered type. So serially linked. In the universe of Nebanon, all life modification planets are serially linked together and constitute a special domain of universe affairs, which is given attention by designated administrators, and all of these experiment worlds are periodically inspected by a core of universe directors. Tabamantia is the chief of the core of experimental world inspectors, of course, at the time of the writing. Tabamantia is an Agadoner of finaliter status, having survived from one of the quarantine spheres involved in the first rebellion ever to take place in the universes of time and space. Tabamantia is the veteran finaliter of the system of Satania. Tabamantia's sovereign supervisor of the series of decimal or experimental worlds, came to inspect the planet and, after a survey of racial progress, duly recommended that Urantia be granted material sons. Again, this is quite a long time after a normal world would get the material sons and daughters. Rebellion, default, or decimal implications. From Tabanasha's last words, our planet, Urantia is described as strife-torn, grief-stricken, and a disease-afflicted world. Which of these items do you think are an implication of being a decimal planet? Strife, something to think about. Strife-torn, grief-stricken, and disease-afflicted. Life carriers regret their special efforts handicapped. The planetary prince Caligastia had worked beneficially for Urantia for roughly 300 years before the rebellion. The life carriers' plan to modify life on Urantia was handicapped by tragic perversions beyond their control, the Caligastia betrayal and the Adamic default. Life carriers' greater disappointment, the Adamic default and its unforeseen impact on this. So the greatest disappointment was the reversion of certain primitive plant life back to pre-chlorophyll levels, creating parasitic bacteria is a disappointment. The levels of parasitic bacteria was such an extensive and unexpected scale. This eventuated in plant life evolution that caused many distressful diseases in higher mammals, particularly in the more vulnerable human species. When confronted with this possibility, the life carriers discounted it somewhat, knowing that Adamic life plasm would so reinforce the resisting powers, making the blended races practically immune. After the Adamic default, hopes for this remedy were absent. Successful plans and consequences. On Urantia, the endeavors of life carrier to improve the Satania life patterns necessarily resulted in the production of many apparently useless forms of transition life. But the gains already accrued, that's what our book says, are sufficient to justify the Urantia modifications of the standard life designs. It has been deemed successful that the human will preceded the introduction of the colored races. The gains accrued from this particular modification are sufficient to justify the deviations from standard life design in Satania. So it sounds like they might be experimenting with that some more, letting human will evolve. Goal met, the early manifestation of will in evolutionary life before any revelations from on high succeeded here on Urantia. And on Infanta developed into human will creatures, they made advances mentally through the 7 adjutant mind spirits. So now this is, I find really interesting. There a successful healing technique first established on Urantia. Another evolutionary world benefits from our decimal status already. So more than 500,000 specific experiments were made by life carriers in their laboratories before they finally settled upon this formula for the Urantia life experiment. When scientists know more about some of our natural healing chemicals, they will become Urantia scientists, they will become more efficient in the treatment of injuries, and indirectly they will know more about controlling certain serious diseases. But since life was established on Urantia, the life carriers have improved this healing technique as it has been introduced on another Satania world, in that it affords more pain relief and exercises better control over the proliferation capacity of the associated normal cells. So that was something that I learned, that there has already been a successful result that's affecting another planet in Satania due to us being a decimal planet. So maybe there's a lot of wisdom in having decimal planets, and then 9 are non-decimal to perfect it. Okay. And then just kind of in closing, pretty close to the end here, why God allows for modifications in evolutionary patterns. Why are there life modification worlds that are so carefully planned and monitored? Nature is, in a limited sense, the physical habit of God. The conduct or action of God is qualified and provisionally modified by the experimental plans and the evolutionary patterns of a local universe, a constellation, a system, or a planet. God acts in accordance with a well-defined and unchanging, immutable law throughout the wide-spreading master universe. But he modifies the patterns of his actions so as to contribute to the coordinate and balanced conduct of each universe. He contributes. Let me start again. But he modifies the pattern of his actions so as to contribute to the coordinate and balanced conduct of each universe, constellation, system, planet, and personality in accordance with the local objects, aims, and plans of the finite projects of evolutionary unfolding. What that tells me is he's contributing to the free will, local objects, and aims and goals, and that there's room for that free will, the small scale, large scale, work together. I'm trying to go to the next one. Oops. Okay, in conclusion, there are many variables in the evolutionary spheres. We know every 10th is a decimal planet. Every 10th is a decimal or experimental planet, but we know nothing of other variables. Not told a lot. Differences are too numerous to narrate even within a given group. That's what the book says. The ascension career is always the most important factor in any consideration of mortals of time and space. The universe is unfailing in the application of equalizing techniques designed to ensure that no ascender shall be deprived of aught which is essential to his ascension career. Then, last slide before we talk about going into breakout groups is just some things that I wondered after this study. There's more things too, but I just put a few. That since one significant life modification on Urantia was the plan to have the planetary prince arrive long after human will appeared, I wonder if the length of time, 500,000 years, was also planned. Or were there supervisors waiting for a specific achievement or opportunity? What promoted the planetary prince coming when he did, so long after and on Infanta? And they didn't have a long life. So long after them. Okay, then another thing I'm wondering about is the planetary prince is working on Urantia beneficially for 300,000 years. One would think Adam and Eve would have come shortly thereafter. The planetary prince arrived, as usually occurs. I wonder if our second revelation had come during Caligastia's regime, if it would have made a positive difference for our first epical revelation. Could an established garden and biologic upliftment during those years helped us avoid our planetary prince's betrayal? Perhaps being alone and isolated with immature life on Urantia made Caligastia more susceptible. We know there were other factors that led to Caligastia and Lucifer into rebellion. Nevertheless, our material son and daughter did not set up their biologic headquarters until 37,000 years ago. So I do wonder if that was a plan. It probably is a consequence of default. Let you wonder about that. So my questions for breakout group are here. I'm not sure I'll read them all, but my plan is that you would get in your breakout group and just talk about which ones you want. Discuss which ones jump out at you or you're interested in talking about. Certainly don't have to do all of them. I want to encourage you to talk about anything that maybe this presentation promoted. But I think it's not clear exactly how to separate the default and the rebellion. So what do you think the biggest implication of Urantia being an experimental planet? It'd be interesting to talk about. And what do you infer as the value in allowing human will to develop unaided by epical revelation for 500,000 years? What would be the potential advantages of introducing 6 races at one time? We'll read through a few of them, more of them. On a normal world, the material son and daughter come shortly after the planetary prince. What might be benefits of having this delay? We are told in our future travels we'll have the opportunity to offer suggestions to the life carriers. What do you have so far? What questions do you have regarding Urantia life? Do you believe the arrival of emergency son, Macavente Melchizedek, as a result of the failures of our experimental sphere? Was maybe the Urantia book and the emergency son part of the decimal status, or more a result of the default or the rebellion? But this is the thing I'm very interested in. Life experiment planets are designed to amplify and improve evolutionary life. What do you think they specifically mean by amplify? Can you think of an example? Did you learn anything new or surprising about life carriers? Before the rebellion, we are told the 7 adjunct mind spirits are hampered in making human contact on life modification planets. Do you still believe we are hampered by adjunct isolation? And then are you optimistic about our future, our planet's future, knowing the life carriers have completed their work? So I'm not sure. I guess I stopped sharing now. Hi.
Yeah, so I can, thank you, Jackie. That was very interesting. I can put everybody in breakout rooms. I'm not sure how to get everyone a copy of the questions, but given a few minutes, I know I can copy them and go into each breakout room and put them in the chat. The problem is once you get in a breakout room, your chat is only for the breakout room.
Yeah.
But if but I can jump back and forth and post them in each breakout room's chat. It just takes me a couple minutes to do that.
The only other idea I had was, and I think we're running a little early, aren't we? Maybe?
Yeah.
9 o'clock. So thank goodness I took out about 20 slides. Well, the only other idea I had was I could make clear my email address, and then one person from each group could email me and I'll send them the questions, but whatever you think would work better.
That's not a bad idea.
Okay.
I think that way, if some group for some reason doesn't have the questions, at least someone can ping you and get them.
Yeah, should we try that in now? I wish my email address was shorter, but maybe I could just put it on my renaming right now. People could write it down. What do you think?
Or you can just send a chat to everyone. Oh,
that's a great idea. Okay. So my email is Jacqueline. I'll do that chat. Oops, I hit the wrong one. It's jacqueline.koury@gmail. Jacqueline is JACELYN .KOURY. It's pronounced Koury. I know it's scary sometimes to look at that funny spelling. Jacqueline.koury@gmail, and then I just send it.
Yep. And somebody else had a suggestion. If we put the slide back up for a second, then people could take a picture with their phone or grab it on their screen also. Okay. That might be as long as one person we're going to have, these.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you now.
People do it. We should be fine.
Okay. How's that, guys?
It hasn't quite come through yet.
Oh.
My
you see it?
My internet might be slow.
Oh.
I don't see it. Do other people see it? Ken, do you see it? No.
Oh, they don't see it? Oh.
No.
It says I'm sharing.
You might be at the end of the slide, so it just went black or something at the end of the presentation.
No.
Okay, I'll try to go back. There's 59. You're not seeing that though?
You have to click, Jackie, you have to click on the document when you're in the choosing screen share for it to be the one that shows.
Here, I can actually, I can do it. Hold on. Everybody see that?
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Tim. You're just so thankful. Your help.
So people can, yeah, I was going to say, if people can screen grab that or take a picture on your phone, and then at least someone in your breakout group is likely to have that info. And if not, email Jackie at her address there and she can send them to you. Okay.
Yeah. And again, feel free to talk about whatever you'd like to talk about too. Just some questions, and we'll go over some of them if we have time when we come back together. So are we taking a break, Tim? Or are we going to just try to get into the rooms maybe?
I think it's better to put everyone in the rooms, and then if they want to take a break, either at the beginning or end of their session, I think that works better. What time do you want to come back from the breaks and have some discussion maybe?
What does everybody think? It's
11 o'clock, or it's on the hour now, maybe at 1/2
Sure. Is that what? Yeah. How much time? Like, did you learn anything last night? Was 30 minutes good? Or if we have 30 minutes, so I think
we only took 20. I thought it would have been nice to have a little more, but that leaves 30 for discussion, which is I think plenty.
Okay. And when we come back, I'm just going to kind of go over all of them, and then just any volunteer that has maybe something that they want to share on them. I don't have a closing presentation, so we're just going to discuss.
Okay.
the topic. Okay, well, thank you.
I'm gonna. There's gonna be 7 rooms. There'll be 8 to 9 people in each one. So, if everybody's ready, we'll do that.
Oh, you know what, Tim? I think I did my email just to you. Did I, or does everybody see it?
Oh, let me check.
Oh, I think I did.
Yep. All right, I'll copy it here.
You can do that too. Okay. Yay.
Okay, there's Jackie's email as well, but I think it's going to disappear when you go in the room. So
Okay.
just copy that or write it down or something to everybody. And
Actually, it will stay in the chat. It will stay in.
oh, will it stay in the chat?
Everybody will be able to see it in their chat.
Well, then I can actually just put the questions in there too. Let me do that before everyone leaves. I think they might not look quite as elegant, but we'll see.
Are you ready to fire off the emails? You have the questions copied?
Yeah.
If these remain visible, I'll be interested. But then that'll let everybody scroll up and see them. Okay. All right, here we go. See everybody at about past.
Thank you.
Welcome back, everyone. Jackie, do you want to say anything before we?
Sure.
Okay, good.
Yes, I guess. Well, Ken, what did you do though? What are you apologizing for? Ken? Oh, well.
Thank you. We were in the middle. We had gone over like 2.5 questions, and we were in the middle of discussion, and I did not notice, because last night we had a warning that the breakout rooms were ending, and I did not see that notice tonight, and so we didn't do a farewell or a moment of quiet or a thank you or anything.
Yeah.
So, anyhow, I was just being silly. I hope everybody enjoyed their group, their breakout group.
Yeah, I hope so too. I really did. I did really enjoy this topic. I found it very interesting. And one thing that we talked about a lot in our group was that they thought, why was there 500,000 years between the human will and on Infanta showing up and our planetary prince, and that was, even though we're considered a backward planet now, but that was considered a success. I don't quite know how to, is there anybody who just wants to say something without me, anything that you want to talk about with your groups? Or, we could go through the questions. Yeah. Yes. Okay, Albert, I can't see everybody, but go ahead.
Thank you, Jackie. Just would like to Jackie to say bravo for your session, what you have done for us. I have a lot of gratitude, and when you put the subject, I wonder with a question mark. I just would like to introduce something on the behalf of all the women who are here, because in a study group on Urantia Cafe, the subject come and somebody say because in your what you say, Jackie, you say you wrote about Tabamantia after his inspection, and somebody brought up that probably it's after her inspection. Why? Because often when you terminate a name with A, it might suggest that's a woman. Like, imagine, to the behalf of all my sister, a woman might come first in Abona. That's all. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Halbert?
Okay, thanks. I just want to say in relationship to this, that 500,000 years, we might call it mid-mind, in the sense that the mind development of the human beings was not of sufficient quality for there to be effective community. That's why the planetary prince wouldn't come, is because there wasn't a quality of mind sufficient to really build civilization yet. And so, one of the things we are challenged by all the time, and we talk about it in these very direct, specific terms of how we act like animals and our reptilian mind is taking over. And we're very in touch with this issue of acting like an animal versus acting like a spirit. And so, perhaps this 500,000 year period is giving not only humanity, but a universe an opportunity to see and explore and live with that challenge in a way where it doesn't show up as quite so awful once we're really at the level of trying to create civilization. And so maybe that's a way that, like the angels, learn how to work with mortal minds better by having an expanded time period to play around with, if you will. And thought adjusters, similarly, are not going to be able to pair off effectively with mortals as well, in this type of world. And so that's going to presumably create more thought adjusters that are experienced and things of this nature. There's all kinds of ramifications. So I'll just leave it there. Thank you for.
Yeah, that's a good point. I see a hand up, Bill and Kay. Cooper, I see your hand up. Maybe you're not wanting to say.
Yeah, I just was trying to get.
Okay. Excuse me. Yeah. I understand that.
I'd be very interested in having your the material that you had on your slides, because there were some statements I wanted to kind of pursue in that.
Oh, okay.
It was quite interesting, Jackie, and I appreciate all of your work. I thought you brought up several things that are worth pursuing and discussing, and maybe even seeing if there's any place else we can dig up information, whether in the book or elsewhere, that might guide us in answering some of these questions. And one of the ones that we talked about in our group was that having all of this time after the development of a human mind and human beings, and having all of this time after the development of the colored races is a long period of time to experiment with how people are developing on their own. So it's quite an experiment, and I suspect that it's a unique experiment, pushing the boundaries of experiments is what I think was happening there. And then, of course, when we had the two events piled on top of that, I think probably at this point in time, it's in great demand that people want to be here and contend with all of the things that have happened here. By people, I mean, I was really referring to adjusters and angels and so forth, probably really compete to be here because we've had so much time without the leadership that we needed. So I just suspect that that's an important part of what's going on.
By coming here, you get the real human experience, unaltered by revelation, very much. Real, down to the core animal human experience. We should all be feeling blessed to be here with our adjusters.
Yeah.
We are very much blessed to be here with this kind of
I think we all have the adventuresome spirit within us to appreciate this too. It comes with being here, but yeah, I think we kind of like that, and that dual nature we have is so human. Then we have our thought adjusters. Okay, I see. Patty, would you like to talk about something?
No, I wrote that down.
I better unmute myself.
Yeah.
Hal brought up the timeline of the Andon race needing maybe 500,000 years to develop fully the nature of will. And that fits into the idea that the life carriers had, well, it's in, and we brought it up in ours, on paper 77, section 2, the Nodite race, the life carriers had constituted the prince's staff as sex creatures for the purpose of participating in the plan of procreating offspring, embodying the combined qualities of their special order, united with those of selected stock of the Andon tribes. And I thought, okay, now that makes sense. If the Andons had to evolve sufficient will for that part of the life carrier's plan to come into fruition, maybe they needed that 500,000 years. Our timeline is a little different than theirs.
Yeah. Well, again, I'm open for any topic, but then Patty, do you want to say some more, Patty?
No.
Oh, I don't want to cut you off. Okay. I just want
if I could comment quickly along that, I think it's interesting to note that one of the kind of dramatic literary things that the authors do with respect to non-coined terminology is they tell us when and why we should use the term Neanderthal race. And that comes up, as I recall, about 150,000 years into it, was it? That there was, a battle of the superiors against the inferiors, and it created a little bottleneck of superior genetics that brought up the quality generally of the Andonites, but not enough for them to be Sangic. And so it's sort of an interesting, I think, demarcation about this process, because it's a definite reminder that there's progressive evolution going on through this process. These are categories, but they're categories that are part of a spectrum, because our evolutionary nature is progressive, even at those very low levels where it's just barely human.
Yeah, progressive. Ted?
Yeah, since will was a part of this experiment, I think they took a long time to see how will was going to play out, not just in the first few generations, but as it was to evolve. Otherwise, how do you read the results of your experiment?
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Well, so then usually shortly after the planetary prince, which in our case, we got the 6 Sangic races at the same time, but usually shortly after that, we have the Adam and Eve, material son and daughter. So there was 300,000 years in there from the time of the planetary prince until rebellion. Why do you think that we didn't get a material son and daughter during that time? I mean, because planetary prince was working peacefully for 300,000 years.
We just hadn't evolved enough. I think they're pretty clear that was just purely a matter of biologic evolution, because they comment that in spite of the fact of the rebellion, evolution continued at a pace. And so even though we weren't ready socially for Adam and Eve, we were biologically. And so that's why they came when they did. Yeah.
So a normal planet had made a lot more progress than you're saying, Albert. with their planetary prince, made lots of progress, and Adam and Eve could come in.
Well, you're bringing up a question now about what the progress might be like on planets where the Sangiks are spread out over time, and how much time are they spread out over. And I don't have that stuff in my mind to recall how much detail we're given off the top of my head to make that type of comparison. I don't know what to tell. I think the main thing is the Adamic upstep. In other words, we know that is what gets you to the Industrial Revolution and these, whole new levels of sophisticated intellectual development. And so it seems to me like when you've got plenty of time, you don't want things to evolve too quickly. It takes the fun out of it. We look at it from our human perspective, but this is not a problem that it takes time or it doesn't take time. It's kind of all good. You just get different values out of one type of system versus another. If things get good really quickly, then we don't get as much depth of experience or breadth of experience.
Right.
But we don't suffer as much, and that's kind of cool. We like to think. So, I don't know what to...
Well, one thing my group reminded me of is that the 6 Sangic races was like a surprise, right? So we were talking about whether it was planned to come at the same time and what the benefits maybe would be in having the races all appear at once. But then I was reminded that it wasn't planned, right? It was a surprise to life carriers. It was a surprise that they showed up in one family. Is that true? And then I was just wondering, do you think that maybe also we didn't get our Adam and Eve right away so that those races had time to evolve before? Do you think that had anything to do with it? Or, go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, yes, Jackie, we talked in our group about that. And if you look at the patterns of what the planetary prince had to do, what Adam and Eve did, and what the Master Seraphim are, you see these social developments. Each of those, the planetary princes groups were similar to what Adam did. Of course, they were adjusted to the time, because the planetary prince had a group that was dealing with the large animals, with the things that they had to deal with. It seems that this time delay on, at least on this experimental planet, is quite necessary, and probably had to be done because of the Sangic races all appearing at the same time. So that 300,000 years before the rebellion was probably necessary. And it's hard for us to think of 1,000 years, much less 100,000, much less 300,000 years before an Adam and Eve would even be considered to come, because they didn't come in the first 300. And then it took another 200,000 years after the rebellion before Adam and Eve, roughly 200,000 years before Adam and Eve came. So it seems that this planet definitely needs time delays. We have to think about that. It's a rich topic to really talk about, but looking at the Master Seraphim groups today is a very important thing to be able to consider. Going back to Adam and Eve, we had very similar groups, and going back to the planetary prince. So each one required a fair amount of time to be able to put those in place before the next set of groups could then be adjusted. Over.
Thanks, Bob. If I can indulge myself, I was curious about what they mean by amplify life. And I don't know if that caught your eye like it did mine, but the purpose of the life carriers the reason they modify is to improve, it said, in amplify life. Anybody have any comments about that, what that might be? Or is that even maybe silly to think is interesting? Amplify life. All I can see is just brighter colors or something. Tim?
Sorry, I can't raise my hand. Isn't there a passage somewhere that refers to the extra varieties of life that evolved along the way before humans? I think there's the implication somewhere that maybe a normal world doesn't have all the dinosaurs and all these different things that sort of occupied the evolutionary engine until the birth of the first humans. And maybe it's amplified in the sense of more variety, more offshoots, more things that might lead to intelligent life, but didn't, or they learned, for the next one. Just a guess.
Okay. Ted?
Yeah, Tim said most of what I was going to say. I just see it as a fuller spectrum.
Oh, okay.
That has been seen before.
Tom? Hi.
Hey, I had to look up the word because I'm a musician. I like amplifiers,
Oh.
But to make.
I apologize, Tom. I accidentally hit your mute button.
Okay. To make larger, greater, or stronger, enlarge or extend. Okay, when you look at it that way, I mean, our planet was meant to kind of be amplified, be bigger, stronger, more extensive. And I'm sure that would be a legacy to all the planets that have come after us.
Yeah. Thanks. Patty? Oops, can't hear you, Patty. I see a few hands up. Thank
you. Sorry. Amplifying what Tom just said, if we go back, the life carriers had projected a plan envisioning a new order of planetary creatures that they hoped would become the teacher rulers of human society. Such beings were designed for social sovereignty, not civil sovereignty. But then we had a small problem on our planet, and that plan got disrupted. So I think the original plan was to amplify our creature, the planetary creatures, and give us a new order. We were supposed to have another race.
Oh, Floyd? Thank you.
What I have to say really supports what Patty just said. The corporal staff that came with the planetary prince would consist of people from other solar systems. I'm quite sure they helped in improving the quality of the life form, that the indigenous life form for the planet.
Thanks, Floyd. Judy?
I just wondered about, in an experiment that we are, there's always a control group. What would the life carriers have done as far as a control group? Is that where there were other evolutionary beings coming into existence as a control to what we were becoming, and then which ones survived? Apparently, as in the example of the Neanderthals, they sort of got wiped out by the Adamic race, more or less. I don't know who's the control group, or who was the control group. Was there one?
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Sue?
I wonder if the reason the Sangak races appeared all at once is because we were to amplify through diversify, and maybe there were more potential diverse pairings by having everybody here at once than if they were to unfurl. Sometimes over a million, they appear over 150,000 years, other worlds over 1 million years. But I wonder if having them appear all at once was amplification through diversification, maybe more diversity.
Mm-hmm.
There's this interesting experiment that was done, and maybe this is a shout out to the life carriers, called the Sweaty T-shirt research, where these men were given T-shirts to wear for 2 nights, and then women were supposed to smell this box that contained all these different T-shirts and choose who they thought would be their ideal mate. And like 49 out of 50 of the pairings were people who were extremely biologically different, like their DNA didn't have any matches or overlap. And their conclusion was that we are designed, this olfactory sense is there's something in us that smells people who are genetically different from ourselves and is attracted to them. So I wonder if life carriers have been doing a lot of
I think you're breaking up now, Sue. Well,
things to help us diversify and pair off and mix it up a little fast.
thanks, Sue. You're breaking up a little bit at the end. Was it just for me, maybe, or?
No, she was breaking up.
Okay. Do you mind if thank you, Sue. I like that, diversify. Okay, if we're going to wrap it up, Tim, you say? Oh, no,
I was saying if you heard what she said, if you want to maybe summarize it to the extent you could, because I don't think
muted myself because I think
well,
if you didn't
amplify and diversify, I think, but yeah, I don't want to. We have a few more hands up. I'll just move on. I see Diane wanted to talk, and Leela, do you want to, and then Diane and Halbert? And I see Stuart, if we have time for that. Leela?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that the control group are other planets which have normal development. So they measure the experimental against the control group of normal planets.
Yeah, that's how science works, isn't it? Diane?
It was in the same line because Andre Rodatis wrote that comment, the control groups are 9/10 of all the other worlds.
Oh.
It was important to mention.
Oh.
Thanks, Andre.
Stuart?
Yeah, Jackie, and thank you for a very full and comprehensive presentation today on a very deep subject today. It was difficult. There were a lot of items you had to juggle. I wanted to point out something that I thought was rather interesting. On our planet, most of us reach the first mansion world via dispensational resurrections, where we are resurrected en masse. It's like they get all the doctors and nurses and life carriers and archangels and everything that's necessary to bring together a mass resurrection on a dispensational resurrection. And that the first resurrection hall is literally a place to bring and materialize in Urantia form. And the thought is, on most non-decimal worlds, it's easier to bring people in because they're a pattern now that don't need the special care of all of these celestial presences in order to successfully resurrect us into a new reconsciousizing of our being. And that in our world, we're not predictable. And in order to put all the factors again together in our resurrection is probably a real challenge, and that's why they do it en masse. It's like bringing all the doctors together in a central triage and getting it all happening. So that's just a little thought about our decimal world, that we may need special care in the dispensational, except for those who have reached the third psychic circle and, of course, have a dedicated seraphic pair watching over them as guardian seraphim. But then you can do that because we reach a point of soul mass and resurrectability that we can do it without that special care. But many of us have embryonic souls that need special care in replanting it from the small pot of Urantia into the greater expression of mansion world number one. So I'm just looking at that idea. It always amazed me why dispensational sleepers, why you sleep for maybe 1,000 years for a whole dispensation before you get resurrected en masse. But it makes sense because we're not that easy to do, and they want to do it right.
Okay.
That's a good idea.
Daniel, did you want to say something?
All right. The prior speaker, he said about juggling. All right. King Solomon said about the adversary along with Satan is one evil spirit that juggles the brain. He tampers with the brain, okay, and amplify science. You have 1 times 444,000 electrons equals 1 nuclear unit. Okay, and you could take this or leave it, but Satan, he amplifies pain, right? So I just want peace. Okay, that's it. All right.
Okay, no, thank you. Oh, Halbert, thanks for waiting.
Yeah, just a quick comment about, trying to get some sense of baseline genetics and what it means to all of this. One of the things we've got is in our own screwed up world here is we've got Nodites who show up 200,000 years ago, and then Adamites who show up about 40,000 years ago. And it seems the Nodites were an upstepping on many levels, and not one that, then would descend to the human norm, unlike the Adamic upstepping, which does go to the human norm over time. And the Göbekli Tepe artifacts are a great example of that, and how confusing it is to our archaeologists to try to get a handle on it. But the incredible thing about the Adamic civilization in decline, and then somewhat supported by the Nodites, but still in decline over thousands of years, really goes to show us just how powerfully these issues of genetics and the true building of culture are intertwined. And that's all I have to say about it. But it is interesting to note that on our own planet, we've got these issues to look at that help us get a handle on some of it.
Thanks. Stuart, did you have something else to say? Oh, okay. Well, I guess it's a little after 10. I'm still open if anybody has something they want to say, but Patty, you waving at me? You want to say something? You got to unmute, Patty. Unmute. Patty.
I think she's good. She said.
I'm fine.
There we go.
Oh, thanks.
It seems that we are at a point in our evolution that we can recognize that we have a divine inheritance and we are one with our Creator. And as we focus more on going within to make that connection with the Spirit guidance that we have so much of, been given so much of, as Jesus taught us to have prayer and pray to our Heavenly Father, consult with the Spirit of truth. We have the guardian angels, and the more we can spend time focusing on making that connection, then the more we will amplify our spiritual evolution and become more unified in our consciousness with our brothers and sisters on this world and throughout the universes. And that would be an amplification for this world.
Patty, I love that. I feel like that's wonderful closure. Thank you. I didn't plan a closure. Patty and I have studied together since 1976. Her home is the first study group I went to in Alaska when I first found the book. I'm so blessed that there was a study group in Alaska. And Patty began it in 1974. And she's in her beautiful log home there in Alaska. Anyway, enough about that. She's a good friend, you can tell. So thank you so much for coming to my presentation, or the Education Committee's presentation. I really enjoyed putting together and learned so much. And I appreciate your feedback. Makes me feel like it was good, not too long. I was so worried about it being boring, but you all made it feel fun for me. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Jackie. It was fabulous.
Thanks, Jackie.
Thank you.
Love seeing your faces. Okay. Hope we can get together 2022 live.
Thanks, Jackie. Thanks, everyone. We have another session tonight, 6 p.m. Central Time. The Consequences of Rebellion and Default, Exigencies and Disruptions, presented by Barbara Newsom and Chris Wood. So if you can attend, that would be awesome. We're looking forward to that as well. Same Zoom link, same everything. See you this evening, or if not, there's sessions tomorrow and Sunday, as you know.
Okay, friends, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing you. We have a wonderful community.